Hello lovely friends. I've talked about Britney Spears perfumes before, but generally speaking they have been either in, like recently in my notes videos or in singular review videos, which are now quite old. I didn't buy any Britney Spears perfumes for a couple of years. I was put off of them because they just didn't really work for me. So up until recently I only had one in my collection. But when I bought the perfumes from Britney that have a melon or watermelon note in, I was like, okay, these newer Britneys, or the more recent Britneys, some of them at least, seem a little bit less shampooey and a little bit more to my taste. So I decided to buy a bunch of others. Unfortunately, again, I couldn't find places that had samplers of most of these perfumes because it was only like Midnight Fantasy and the original Fantasy that everywhere seemed to have actual testers of in shops. So because they're so affordable, and I do love to talk about affordable perfumes, and I wanted to smell these, I just bought a bunch of Britney perfumes. But I figured I might as well make a big video. I'm going to use clips from my previous videos, but I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of all the Britney Spears perfumes that I have smelt and owned. And I think I've actually owned pretty much all of these, in fact, or do own them currently. So let's start with Britney's first perfume called Curious. So I had this literally when it very first came out. I think that actually maybe my sister got it for me because she was working for like WH Smith's or something at the time. So when it came out, she got a free bottle of it somehow, and I think, I have a feeling, and it was when it still had the little pink hearts on it. So I mean, I just loved the bottle so much. I was obsessed. I thought it was beautiful. The perfume itself, I never really wore it very often. I think at the time it was a little bit too floral for me. And when I had it again, when I was talking about it on this channel, it just gave me a bit of a headache. It's very unfortunate because I think Curious is a beautiful perfume. I think it's quite mature. It's a much more grown-up perfume than the fantasy range, generally most of the fantasy range anyway, and it is a bit much more classic profile. It's kind of an aquatic white floral, but yeah, it just gave me a headache, but I really loved the smell of it and I would love it on other people. I nowadays have a perfume from Toka called Stella, which is it has a very similar floral profile, even though they're totally different flowers. For some reason it smells a bit like Curious to me, but then with like a really orangey top note, and it just wears a little better for me, although I still can't wear that unless it's warm weather because it would give me a headache because it is so intensely floral. So the notes of Curious are top notes magnolia, pear and lotus, middle notes of jasmine, tuberose and cyclamen, base notes musk, vanilla, whitewoods and sandalwood. So Britney's next perfume was obviously the infamous Fantasy. So the OG Fantasy, the notes in it are top notes of kiwi, red lychee and quince, mid notes of white chocolate, cupcake, orchid and jasmine, base notes musk, orris and woodsy notes. I definitely could smell the white chocolate. I definitely could smell the cupcake accord. I could get a hint of those sharp fruits in the top. But this is one of those perfumes that there was the juxtaposition, which I found in a lot of fantasies, and what in the end put me off ever buying them, is that it's intensely sickly sweet while also being screechy in a shampooey way. So this is back when gourmands didn't actually smell like literal food, and this was a gourmand that really, really smelt quite perfumey, very, very sweet, very sharp fruits, but then this kind of soapy shampoo quality. It never really worked for me. I always found it a little bit cloying and irritating when I tried to wear it. I have tried it a number of different times, but it just doesn't work for me. Funnily enough, I think that the original Kayali Yum Pistachio Gelato, that one, I always think smells like Fantasy when it dries down. It's got that same kind of soapy cleanliness with like a super sweet gourmand. So yeah, Fantasy, it wasn't really for me, but I understand why other people like it. The next Fantasy was Midnight Fantasy, and I loved the smell of this. I love the bottle. I think it's the best Fantasy bottle. But again, the shampooey quality of this drove me up the wall. And the thing with Midnight Fantasy, it is such a beast. It's very sugary sweet, but it's It's really fruity, a bit tangy, and it's very, very pretty. The notes are plum, sour cherry, raspberry in the top, mid notes of orchid, iris and freesia, base notes vanilla, musk and amber. But I always thought it smelled like a blueberry muffin. But if you can imagine, you buy a shampoo, like, to be fair, a relatively sharp and slightly harsh shampoo, so really hardcore shampoo, that is scented with a blueberry muffin scent. Like, that's what I got from Midnight Fantasy. I kept trying to wear it, and then the last straw was when I wore it once, and I was in a cab, and I just could not bear the smell. I was like suffocated by it, and I hadn't really put much on, but it just, yeah, it's the shampooiness. If that perfume didn't have the shampoo quality to it, I would love it. But yeah, so again, another one where I totally understand why other people like it. It just wasn't for me. The next Britney was Believe. So Believe is one that I bought even though I kind of suspected the patchouli would be a problem for me, but the bottle is just one of the nicest perfume bottles. I'm such a sucker for any glass that's kind of geometric, and I think the Believe bottle is so cool. So, notes are guava and tangerine in the top, mid notes are lime blossom and honeysuckle, the base notes are patchouli, praline and amber. And I mean, I stand by what I said in my original review of this perfume. Personally, I find the patchouli overwhelming. It's way too much patchouli for me. And personally, like, the only time I ever really enjoy patchouli is if it's in a perfume that isn't fruity. So, like, a fruit patchouli is the worst kind of scent for me. I already kind of suspected it, but after 3+ years making videos on YouTube, I'm absolutely sure it's one of my most hated styles of perfumes. There's something about an earthy green patchouli, or even a minty patchouli, when it's got something fruity with it that just makes me feel a bit sick. But the guava note in Believe is one of the best guava notes I've ever smelled in a perfume. Genuinely, I believe that to be true. I think if you like patchouli, then I think Believe is definitely worth buying. I think it's a really beautiful perfume. It's just one that is definitely not made for me. Next up, Britney released Hidden Fantasy, and this one, I was so excited about this because it seemed like it was going to be quite Christmassy and spicy, and I do think it was sort of Christmassy and spicy. Unfortunately for me, it also has some kind of synthetic wood in it that drove me a little bit up the wall, and it went quite masculine on my skin. Now, it's been so long since I've smelt this, I'm not sure if it has the tarry aroma chemical in it that I always used to just describe as like a masculine, really super masculine smelling wood. It quite possibly does. The rest of this perfume was amazing though. Again, this is the thing with the Britneys, generally speaking, there's one, like maybe aroma chemical, or there's one note in all of them that just makes them not work for me, or made them not work for me. You will see what I have in my collection now. But anyway, so the earlier ones, they just were not for me. So Hidden Fantasy is orange, tangerine, lemon, verbena and neroli in the top. Mid notes are sweet notes, clove, lily and jasmine. Base notes vanilla, amber, woodsy notes and sandalwood. So this could just be a synthetic sandalwood I don't get on with, but normally it's probably some kind of super amber or amber wood. And I do tend to have problems with the fashionable aroma chemicals that are used more and more in perfumery, because they literally smell like burning wood and like burning rubber to me. They don't smell like actual wood or amber. So yeah, this one I can understand again why people like it. It really didn't work for me, but the elements that aren't the woody bit of this, I would have loved this perfume. I would have loved Hidden Fantasy if it didn't have that kind of bitter wood. Next up we have Intimate Fantasy, or I believe it was called Fantasy Intimate Edition, but I think everyone just refers to it as Intimate Fantasy. I'll read you the notes. I thought that this one might be for me, and then it really wasn't for me. Like, I was surprised by this. So the top notes are Italian lemon, lychee and violet leaf. The mid notes are brown sugar, ozonic notes, jasmine, lily of the valley and broom. And the base notes are vanilla, white musk, heliotrope and benzoin. So, normally with the Britney Spears perfumes, what I found was that they're often too sweet for me, or they're very, very, even if they're not too sweet for me, they're very sweet. And people had described the brown sugar in this one, but they'd said it was fresher, brighter, kind of cozy and comforting. Loads of people said they wore this to bed. On me and to my nose, this one was so sharp and sour that it was entirely the opposite of what I normally get with the Britney Spears or the early Britney Spears perfumes, which is the lemon was so screechy and sharp and the lychee was so screechy and sharp that the brown sugar, although I also learnt with this one finally that I don't necessarily like a brown sugar note very much, but the brown sugar wasn't kind of balancing out the sharpness. Now, in hindsight, looking at these notes, it's very possible that they used a type of lychee that I find like eye-piercingly screechy. Because, for instance, the perfume Delina has a horribly screechy aroma chemical in it. And I think a lot of lychee perfumes are like so eye-piercingly sharp to me. Not all of them by any means. There are certain houses that do lychee in a way that I can get along with. And to be honest, like, maybe that's also why it's so shampooey, that I feel like it is definitely possible that there is an aroma chemical in a lot of the early fantasies that kind of lay out the house DNA, and that's why lots of people call it shampooey. But for some reason in Intimate Edition, it was like way more screechy and sharp than any of the others. So yeah, it was weird because there was a sickliness to it from the brown sugar, but I think that was more about the actual aroma rather than the level of sweetness. There was a real sharpness and it just smelled really synthetic to me, which, yeah, I was surprised. Everyone else loved it. It's also a very beautiful bottle, so I was quite sad about that. This is one of those where I can't really get a sense of what it is that people like about it because it smelled so unpleasant to me. Not that I thought it was a bad perfume exactly, but I'm not sure I could smell what everyone else was smelling. So Intimate Fantasy just wasn't for me. I promise, guys, I will be getting onto stuff that I like, but definitely the first, I don't know, maybe 10 Britney perfumes are just not ones that I could ever get along with. And next up we have one that I have been quite rude about and I haven't changed my mind about. I have had a couple of bottles of these and I've tried it at different times, thinking maybe I was wrong, but I don't think I was. So, Private Show. This is a discontinued perfume that loads of people absolutely love, and I was hoping I would love it. I was really excited to buy it, and it was just so synthetic to me that it was another one of those where I just could not understand what people were liking about it. Like, I couldn't understand what people were smelling. I was missing. I was not really getting the Dulce de Leche very much. I wasn't getting a huge amount of the whipped cream. I was getting a very sugary scent, but pure shampoo. Like, there's coffee. So it was so harsh to me. It's like, again, if you imagine a shampoo that's flavoured or scented with something that's supposed to smell like a creamy caramel coffee, but it was just very, very harsh and scratchy and screechy while also being sickly. I found that the Orange Blossom and Jasmine were quite strong, probably why it felt so soapy and shampooey. So I really didn't like Private Show. I got rid of it. When I was doing my channel, I bought it back again because I wanted to try it again because I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't try it at the right time of year. I tried it a few times. There's, again, maybe an aroma chemical. There is something in Private Show that drove me right up the wall. And I also tried VIP Private Show. So this one has top notes of mango, red apple, blood orange, mid notes of violet, orange blossom and magnolia, base notes raspberry, amber, musk and woodsy notes. This one absolutely smelled like cheap plastic fruits and shampoo. And I got this weird caramelly sweetness in it, even though the notes don't suggest it. But I guess if you think about the original Private Show, they probably just haven't mentioned that this is based around the original composition. So maybe there's Dulce de Leche in it, and that's what I was getting. But I found that mixture of kind of cheap smelling synthetic fruits with a shampooey smelling dulce de leche, it absolutely, I hated this one. I think probably looking at this list now, this is the perfume from Britney that I liked the least. This is a perfume that I really could not ever... I mean, this is one where I didn't even understand anything about why anyone would like it. I just thought it smelled so cheap. And I don't necessarily think that, like, Midnight Fantasy, Hidden Fantasy, those are not things I think smell cheap. They just don't work for me. But Private Show VIP, I thought just smells so cheap. So, yeah, sorry guys, I know lots of people love that one, but that one was just an absolute mess to my nose. So let's get on to something a bit more positive, guys. When Prerogative came out, I mean, this is what I wanted Private Show to be. So I'm not sure how well the notes here really can describe what this smells like. But Prerogative is top notes of apricot, goji berries and pink pepper, mid notes of coffee, saffron, red lily, base notes sandalwood and amberwood. So the amberwood here doesn't bother me, but it has a very creamy, almost coconutty sandalwood, I'd say, in Prerogative. It has the kind of sandalwood that I get in Katy Perry's Indie, and I do think there are some weird crossovers with those two perfumes. But this, like, Prerogative is... I still have this in my collection. It was the first and only Britney that I had for quite a long time, for a few years. It's like, if you can imagine... like a extra large latte, but you've only got one shot of coffee in it, so it's mainly creamy milk, so like full cream milk, and then you've got one shot of caramel syrup in it, or maybe actually quite a lot of caramel syrup, so it's quite sweet, and then you've got a shot of like goji berry syrup, so you've got this hint of fruitiness. I don't really get apricot, to be honest. And then you've got a ton of like cream on top. It has like... It does still smell like a perfume. It isn't 100% gourmand, but it is very much leaning in that way. I think it's very creamy, it's very sweet. I really, really like Prerogative. I think it's a beautiful perfume. It gets compared to Black Opium a lot, but I really genuinely very much don't like Black Opium. I really don't like how much orange blossom is in it for how sweet it is. And I don't like the orange blossom and coffee note mixed together very much, and I really don't like the patchouli in Black Opium. So personally, I don't really get Black Opium from Prerogative, but I can understand it's in that same neck of the woods in terms of like a sweet, slightly creamy, slightly hint of coffee perfume. But I think it personally smells quite different from Black Opium. But yeah, this is a good perfume. I really like it. It's not massively strong, but I think it's really pretty, and it's very cozy. It's really lovely. The next Prerogative that was released, I think, was Rave. Now, I only had a sample of this one because I was just really happy I managed to find a sample of it, so I didn't have to blind buy it, which I've had to blind buy nearly all of the Britney perfumes. But I really didn't like Rave very much, just because, again, there was a very synthetic smelling wood in the base of Rave. So it also veered away a fair bit from the original Prerogative. It was much, much more fruity, has a beautiful raspberry in the top. So the notes of Prerogative Rave were raspberry, pear and mandarin in the top, lily, red freesia, or red lily, sorry, freesia and jasmine in the mid, base notes of cashmere, musk and sandalwood and cedar. So either the cedar or the cashmere to me smelled very strongly like pencil shavings in Rave. It had like a bit of that creamy caramel latte feel, but there was a really, really bright zingy raspberry in the top, which I really, really liked. But that pencil shavings, how it dried down, I just did not like that smell. Yeah, I didn't really get along with this one, so I never bought a bottle of it, very sensibly. I think the next release was Festive Fantasy from Britney, and I looked at these notes and thought, I think I might actually love this one, but we shall see. So I went ahead and I bought this, also because lots of people said that this was kind of like, it felt like a sister to Midnight Fantasy. So I was excited by the thought of that. The notes here are dewberry, which, I mean, dewberry, come on, we need more perfumes with dewberry in. It's talking dew, Body Shop, bring it back. But dewberry, sour cherry, plum in the top, mid notes of freesia, lily and jasmine, and base notes sugar, vanilla, musk and sandalwood. I thought this would be delicious. I thought I'd really like it. Oh, but this is the perfume that stopped me buying Britney perfumes. This is the one that once I'd reviewed it for the channel and I'd sold it on, I never bought another perfume from Britney's range until a couple of months ago. So there was like over 2 years, I think, between the last time, like the time I bought the watermelon perfumes and when I bought Festive Fantasy. I just disliked Festive Fantasy very strongly. So I was hoping it would be like lighter Midnight Fantasy, so I would be able to wear it after I'd got rid of Midnight Fantasy, because that one was so strong and shampooey. So I really had my fingers crossed for this one to be like a good, satisfying replacement for Midnight. But I did not get that. I do not think that this one smells like Midnight Fantasy. I got a sweetness in this, so I got some really sharp fruits. Really sour, sharp fruits, which I don't necessarily mind, but I got a kind of sweetness that to me smelled like burnt caramel, and the juxtaposition, like the clash of the very sharp fruits with that burnt caramel smell, really was not for me. And again, a little bit shampooey, so there was so much going on with Festive Fantasy that did not work for me at all. That was like not even one I had to think about. That came in and went straight out again. So Festive Fantasy, not so much. Cute bottle, but didn't like it. Then we have Prerogative Ego. I did have this one for a little while. I ended up decluttering it because I wasn't wearing it due to it being so sweet. And also because, to me, it smells almost exactly the same as the original Prerogative, but it's stronger, it's sweeter, and it has more of the apricot and goji berries. I have a perfume from 4711 called Goji Berry and Cactus, and it has the exact same goji berry notes that Prerogative does. So it's kind of almost like I've put on Prerogative and then put on a very concentrated and extremely sweet, sugary version of my Goji and Cactus perfume. So it was just too sweet for me. It just was too sweet. But I did go through a phase where I really loved it, where I was just having like a couple of months where I really liked very sugary perfumes, which I seem to have moved away from. I think Prerogative Ego was great. I think it was amazing. I really liked it. But in the end, I just decided to keep the original Prerogative and get rid of Ego because it was discontinued, and I figured there'd be someone who was probably desperate to own Ego, because I'm sure due to the slightly fruitier and even sweeter and stronger nature of it, I figured there'd be people who really wanted that one. So I passed that on and just kept the original Prerogative. But I think that's a really nice perfume personally. So the notes are sandalwood, apricot, amberwood, coffee, arum lily, saffron, goji berries and pink pepper, which I do think is exactly the same notes that's in Prerogative, but, you know, just maybe used in different doses. Very pretty though. The next release was Circus Fantasy, and I just have, this is so battered and knackered, I have this kind of little set of Circus Fantasy. This is just because I really wanted a 30ml bottle of this. I didn't want to have to get a 100ml because nowadays I think the older fantasies you can only get in 100ml bottles. But this is a very cute little 30ml bottle of Circus Fantasy. So this one has notes of raspberry, sugar and apricot blossom in the top, mid notes of orchid, peony and water lily, base notes, sweet notes, vanilla, musk, violet and woody notes. So this is one that I don't feel massively strongly either way about Circus Fantasy. This is a perfume where I like the raspberry that you get on the very first spray, but I feel like that kind of disappears and you end up with just a kind of generic fruitiness going on here that I wouldn't necessarily pull out as raspberry. There's a lot of florals, so I feel like this has a slightly cleanly quality again to it, maybe slightly shampooey, but also just almost has the feel of a freshie, like almost a laundry freshie, but then it has those sweet sugary notes to keep it really, really sweet. And there is another pencil shaving-y kind of wood in the base of this. But on skin it's not overwhelming, but it definitely has a little bit of that pencil shaving-y thing. So this isn't a love, but it's not a hate. It's kind of slap bang in the middle. I think it's kind of cute, but it's probably not one that I would crave wearing. I just wanted to add in that the top comparison on Fragrantica for Circus Fantasy is Cacharel's Amour Amour, but in a very tangential way, I can see why there is a link there. But I don't really get Amour Amour particularly from this one. I think it doesn't necessarily smell as rosy, it's not as citrusy, and it's not as perfumey, I don't think, as Amour Amour. So it may be somewhere in that wheelhouse. If you like Amour Amour, you'll probably quite like this one, but I don't actually think so. I just can't wear Amour Amour. That is a absolute shampooey bomb to me, and it's overwhelming. I used to wear it when it first came out, but I couldn't wear that now. I have bought a bottle of it in kind of my 40s to try it again, and I just absolutely couldn't wear it. This one I definitely could wear, so don't be put off if you don't like Amour Amour, because I don't really think this one particularly smells like Amour Amour. I just wanted to throw that in. Next up we have Island Fantasy, which, as you can see, I have the body spray of because very sadly they don't make this perfume anymore. I kind of blows my mind a little bit that they don't make this anymore, because this is I think maybe Britney's first proper fruity freshie, like real freshie, that isn't overly sweet. And I think this is a beautiful, lovely, yummy perfume. You can still easily get the body spray though, which is great, but it's a little bit of a shame that we can't get this still in the bottle, especially because the bottle was so cute. So I'll put the bottle up with the note so you can actually see what the lovely bottle would have looked like, or did look like. I'm sure lots of people actually have this one, but I wouldn't buy this secondhand. People are trying to charge like £100 for it. It's crazy. But the notes here are top notes of watermelon, citruses and clementine, mandarin, orange and red berries, so very fruity in the top. Mid notes of freesia, violet and jasmine, base notes sugarcane and musk. So it has that sugar in it again. There's always some kind of sugary note in the Britney perfumes. Apart from Curious, I think it's like the only one that's not like particularly sweet. But this one's really nicely balanced. It's very tangy. Funnily enough, I get a bit of watermelon, but I feel like you'll see the perfume later that actually I think smells like watermelon. But I've really fallen in love with this one to wear as a freshie in the morning, especially like in hot summer days. But I think this smells like pineapple myself. I get a very little bit of watermelon, and then I get a tangy citrusiness that reminds me of pineapple juice. So this one to me smells like a kind of tropical pineapple freshie. It's aquatic and watery and juicy, and it's very, very lovely. So this is one of the fantasies that brought me back to wanting to try more fantasies. So I really, really like Island Fantasy, but like I said, unfortunately you can now only get it in this form. Next up we have Fantasy Sheer. So this is one that I just got recently, and I was really looking forward to trying this one. I mean, I saw one person say it smelled like mop water, and other people are saying it's like the nicest, brightest, yummiest summer perfume. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to get with this one. This is the box. Very silvery and shiny. Very nice. Sparkling, alluring and softer than Fantasy. That's what it says. Interesting. And this is the frankly quite beautiful bottle. I think that this one is so, so pretty. So Fantasy Sheer, this is one that like I said, this has been around for a little while and I can't get this in the 30ml anywhere. So I had to get the 100ml. But to be honest, in the UK, I got this for about £14 for 100ml. So I was like, worth the risk. I'm sure someone will take this off my hands if I don't like it. So the notes in Fantasy Sheer, or I know I'm always going to call this Sheer Fantasy, like it's just how my brain works. So this is citrus, water, lychee and quince in the top, mid notes water lily and lily of the valley, base notes cupcake, white musk, iris and woodsy notes. So this guy, this definitely does have the DNA on the profile of the original Fantasy. Like, it's obvious, especially when you first spray it. So I was like, it smells like exactly what it's called, a sheer Fantasy with loads of lemon in it. So it's sharper, but it's therefore juicier, and it's not quite as sickly. And on the skin, I think this one dries down to smell very pretty indeed. I think it's a much more wearable version of the original Fantasy, in my humble opinion. I know lots of people like the original Fantasy, but I feel like that one is really strong. I find it a bit cloying, and I think this one just is a lighter, more fun and easier version, and a summer appropriate version. And I do actually quite like this. I'm wondering if this is going to be the perfume that makes me enjoy the general Fantasy DNA more, because I think on skin, this one really is pretty. It's a little bit floral. You definitely still get a bit of that cupcake, but it's that same kind of cupcake that you'll see in Jungle Fantasy later on. It's got this ever so slightly plasticky cupcake smell about it that I really enjoy, but there isn't the kind of thick, sugary sweetness on top of that. You just get this lovely kind of watery fruit, and it does smell watery and very pretty. So I kind of like this one. This is one that's staying with me at least for the foreseeable future, and I will be seeing how I get on with it. But I think Fantasy Sheer is really a lovely perfume that's definitely worth trying. Really, really pretty. Next up on the list is Electric Fantasy. So I was very happy I could get a 30ml of this one, because I kind of thought that I felt like there was a chance I might kind of enjoy this one, but I also knew it might be a profile that isn't necessarily up my street. And I would say that this one does take quite a turn away from the regular Fantasy DNA. It's still very sweet though, so it's very much like a classic in this range. I mean, would you just look at this cute little 30ml bottle? I love the 30ml. I mean, to be fair, I do quite like the bulbousness, especially of the paler bottles of the big 100mls, but the little 30mls are so cute. They look so cute together. But anyway, I digress. So Electric Fantasy is passion fruit and pink pepper in the top, mid notes of heliotrope and jasmine, base notes benzoin and ambroxan. So the fact that they added ambroxan in as an actual note made me think this is probably not going to work too well for me. Ambroxan smells very bitter and woody and screechy on my skin, so it's no surprise to me that this one isn't my favourite. But at the same time, I do think that this is kind of mass pleasing. So the reason I feel like that is because it definitely smells a little bit like Valentino Donna Born in Roma, and it also has a little bit of that kind of that smell that you get with like Prada Paradox and all of those perfumes that are in that same general realm that are very, very popular. That is what this smells like. Now, unlike Donna Born in Roma, Electric Fantasy doesn't have the patchouli note in it. What it does have, though, is that pink pepper. And for me, that's what ends up really coming through. And it almost acts the same way that the patchouli does in Born in Roma and other perfumes like that, where I can kind of appreciate the beauty to a certain extent, but I just don't like the general profile, and I don't like how this dries down. That's maybe not true that I don't like it. It's just the pink pepper is just a bit overwhelming to me, and it goes very, very strong on my skin personally. So I think that I feel like I have seen someone saying that the patchouli in this is stronger than Donna Born in Roma. I totally don't agree with that, because I don't think this necessarily smells like there's patchouli in it. I just think the pink pepper is very, very strong. And Donna Born in Roma, I get a lot of patchouli in. And that one, I also get the classic Valentino kind of screechy, eye-piercing aroma chemical in that one, which I don't get in this. So I would say this is better. And if you like things like Donna Born in Roma and Paradox, then I feel like you would really love this perfume, and it is an absolute bargain. It's not the strongest, it doesn't last the longest, but it's kind of medium you know, in terms of longevity. I don't normally talk about longevity because it so depends on your skin and your nose and, you know, how you smell things, but it's still going strong on the paper strip after many, many days. So, and when I tried this on, it didn't really wash off after my shower. So it's not necessarily a massive scent bubble, but it's decent. So yeah, I think this is a really good perfume. It's just not necessarily my kind of perfume in terms of profile. Now, Blissful Fantasy was one of those perfumes that I bought when I got my my melon note, I should say, fantasy perfumes to try. And this is one of the 3 perfumes though where I was like, I kind of sat back and I was like, okay, Britney, okay, this is actually good. So here's the box for Blissful Fantasy. Very, very pretty, lovely. I find it really difficult because of the colour of this to not call this one Sunset Fantasy. I know there was a Sunset Fantasy, but I never got to smell that. And it's very much discontinued. So Blissful Fantasy has notes of melon, lily and freesia in the top, mid notes of tiare flower, tuberose and jasmine, base notes musk, sandalwood, orris root. This is very pretty and it's much more grown up. It doesn't smell anything like any of Britney's fantasy perfumes. This is definitely more in line with Curious. I feel like you probably could have put this in a Curious bottle with this colour glass and that would have made maybe more sense than having this as a fantasy, but I do think this is very pretty, and I understand why a lot of people who like the fancy perfumes don't get on with this, because this is a floral bomb. You definitely get melon. Don't be told by people who really love floral perfumes that this is a melon bomb, because I do not think this is a melon bomb unless you are completely nonchalant to very strong florals. This is definitely a floral perfume, but that it has a noticeable melon note in it. It's so pretty. I was really impressed with this. So I'd say this is a wonderful white floral. This is the kind of thing that I'd wear to a wedding, if that gives you an idea of the feel of it. Like, if this was in a toka bottle, I would be like, oh yeah, that smells like a toka perfume. It has a slightly buttery feeling beachy floral here. So personally for me, I'm not really getting much in the way of lily and freesia, but I'm getting a lot of tiare flower and a bit of tuberose and a little bit of jasmine. Muskiness, the orris root is maybe making this ever so slightly powdery, but that tiare flower and tuberose are the buttery versions. It's not a bubblegummy tuberose, and it's a very beautiful, sweet, quite juicy melon, but with a really textured, almost lotiony white floral. Now, I don't normally get on with lotiony white florals. I really don't normally like buttery white florals, but somehow in Blissful Fantasy, they have managed to really nail this with the melon. It just works. So I'd say that the type of melon that's in this stops it smelling too classic. So because it's kind of sweet and juicy rather than the vintage perfumey melons that you get in the classic perfumes that this has been compared to. So for instance, like Dior's J'adore, which I find screechy. I can't wear it. That's way too floral for me, and the melon in it does not really help. And then you've got things like the Issey Miyake, L'Eau de Issey. That one again, too perfumey for me, but famously a white floral melon perfume. Calvin Klein Escape and Sunflowers by Elizabeth Arden. Those are those kind of classic smelling melon, the way melon used to smell, even in things like Cool Water. This is a very modern smelling candied melon. Very juicy, quite sweet, very pretty, but then you have really classic beachy florals underneath it. So yeah, I mean, I think this is one of Britney's best perfumes. I think it's one of the best value. It lasts for quite a long time. It's got a decent strength. The bottle is beautiful. So personally, I think that Blissful Fantasy is really at the top of my list in terms of the best fantasy perfumes. I think that this is an amazing one. So yeah, that's Blissful Fantasy, and I think it's really good, but I can understand why other people don't necessarily like this one quite as much. So next up we have Naked Fantasy, another kind of cool peachy gold box. Lovely, very strange looking colour they've printed here. The white balance is way off on that, you'll see when I put it up. So this little cutie is Naked Fantasy. It is a lovely kind of peachy nudie coloured bottle with the silver around the top. Really, really lovely. I really like this bottle. This is such an interesting one. I'm still trying to get my head round how I feel about this. So the notes in this are Applejack, which is a type of, I think it's American apple brandy basically. So it's a liquor. Blackcurrant and Applejack in the top. Mid notes of peach, osmanthus and water lily. Base notes cupcake, vanilla, apricot and musk. So this one is very tangy because of that liquor note, because of that Applejack. And the liquor with the sweetness gives this a very balsamic quality to me. So that's why I'm on the fence, because I tend not to love balsamic perfumes. They sometimes rub me up a bit the wrong way if there is something quite sweet mixed in with them. Or maybe just in general, like anything that's too balsamic for me, I find a little bit too almost like properly vinegary. But this one also has a very noticeable cupcake, especially in the base, in the dry down. And I do think it's really pretty. The florals are quite strong as well. You can really get a good sense for the water lily and osmanthus here. But yeah, that Applejack is tangy and balsamic. The more it dries down, you're getting the florals, but then it'll dry down more and more. And then what you're left with, so what I have left on the strip, is a slightly fruity, musky cupcake. So the thing with this is that it kind of reminds me of Dior Poison Girl. Like, strength-wise, it's closer to the EDT or the Poison Girl Unexpected flanker. But in terms of the profile, I'm getting something like Poison Girl from this. So I have Poison Girl Unexpected. I've never had the original Poison Girl because that is balsamic to the point of madness for me. I can't wear it. I had Poison Girl EDT, but it was so close to Unexpected, which has that lovely ginger note in it. So I got rid of the EDT. I kept Poison Girl Unexpected because I really like that in warm weather, and my husband really likes that one too. So I'm not sure that I necessarily need another kind of sweet balsamic perfume in that style. So I'm not entirely sure whether Naked Fantasy is going to stay with me or not. What I need to do is properly test them, Poison Girl Unexpected next to this, and just see how I feel about them in comparison. But I do think it's quite pretty. I think if you like Poison Girl, you'd really like this perfume. It may not be like my favourite, but I do think that this is nice. So it's definitely not a bad perfume. It's quite unusual in the Britney perfumes. I don't know if any of her other perfumes are balsamic at all. So yeah, that's Naked Fantasy. So here is my absolute favourite from the fantasy range. Now, although I think that Blissful Fantasy might be the best in terms of quality and profile, I think it's the classiest and probably the best overall. This is my favourite. I just love Jungle Fantasy. So this is the box. There's the slightly garish but really wonderful bottle. I am not in any way sad to have a 100ml bottle of this because you do need to spray quite a lot. It is very sheer. But the notes in Jungle Fantasy are watermelon, yuzu and violet leaf in the top, mid notes of water lily, gardenia and gustavia flower, base notes cupcake and tonka. So this one truly does actually smell like watermelon to me. I don't get a huge amount of watermelon from the Island Fantasy, like I said. I think that one smells a bit more like pineapple. But this is proper watermelon to my nose. And I really, really, really like the weird, slightly plasticky, classic Britney Spears Fantasy cupcake note that's in the base of this, because it stops it smelling like other watermelon perfumes. Because it has the water lily, it does still have just a very small hint of something a bit shampooey, but this one is not too shampooey for me to deal with at all. I love the watermelon in it. It's very watery. It's very, very fresh. On a super hot day, this one smells amazing. I've had a compliment wearing this, even though I don't ever really think that this one's particularly strong, but I've had a friend literally say that I smell really good in this. So I was like, well, people can smell it. It's so good for high heat. It's so yummy. I love watermelon as a note in perfume, so this one just really works for me. And I'd say this feels like a relative of the Fantasy Sheer, because although it doesn't necessarily have the fancy profile, it has the same cupcake in the base, and it has the same watery freshness and around about the same level of sweetness, I'd say. But yeah, so this is my favourite. I love this one, Jungle Fantasy. This is one that I would consider getting a backup of if I found out it was being discontinued. So that's how much I like Jungle Fantasy. So there you go. I'm not just a negative Nancy when it comes to these perfumes anymore. So the most recent fantasy released is Candied Fantasy. Here's the very cute pink box. Lovely, cute perfume on the back. This one still says EA Fragrances, so I'm not sure that Elizabeth Arden are going to be making Britney perfumes anymore, but it seems like this one is still made by Elizabeth Arden. I mean, this is a pretty cute bottle, isn't it? It's a bit kind of frosted and ombre. It's very pink, it's very girly, really, really cute. Matches perfectly with the way that this one smells. So the notes in Candied Fantasy are top notes of bubblegum and strawberry and orange, mid notes of hibiscus, jasmine, sambac and lily of the valley, base notes of cupcake, musk and sandalwood. And you definitely get a strawberry bubblegum, very specifically a strawberry bubblegum when this opens up, when you first spray it. It's super fun, it is a bit candy-y, a bit sweet, but there is a real sharpness from the strawberry and orange that's balancing out the bubblegum so it doesn't smell overwhelmingly sweet. What's weird about this one is it kind of smells, the more it dries down, like a bit of a rose perfume to me, even though there's no rose listed, which is kind of wild, but I feel like the florals really come through here, so it's not just a bubblegum perfume, it's not entirely gourmand. The first stage, definitely strawberry bubblegum, really, really nice, and then it moves down to being more and more floral. And then I get this strange... Please try not to be put off by this because it doesn't last for a particularly long time. But I get this weird kind of almost slightly vomity smell, this kind of weird sour smell when this dries down and the florals first really come out. So it must be something to do with the mixture of the strawberry with the florals, and sometimes I can really struggle with strawberry perfumes, to be honest. I don't really have any strawberry dominant perfumes, but thankfully the more that this one dries down, the more that kind of, whatever it is, the fruit with the bubblegum and the sweetness, the clashing kind of notes, it becomes more like a light fruity floral that really makes me think of rose, with a creaminess and a sugary sweetness. Again, I guess that's when that classic cupcake note comes through again, and you get this kind of softer, again almost plasticky, kind of nice sweet smell. And I feel like you do retain a bit of that bubblegum scent throughout the whole wear. It's definitely not the main event once it dries down, but I do think it's actually kind of pretty. I do feel like this definitely has some crossovers with Moschino Toy 2. I think Toy 2 is more of a classic bubblegum scent. This one is noticeably like if you bought a strawberry bubblegum. It's not just a classic kind of bubblegum. It really specifically smells like a strawberry bubblegum. And unlike Toy 2, it doesn't completely veer off into smelling nothing like it did in the opening. So Toy 2, I think, starts off smelling very much like a plasticky, fun bubblegum scent, and then it just transitions into being a kind of ambroxan-laden, screechy rose perfume with a lot of sharp fruits, and you totally lose the bubblegum in that one. Whereas this one, I think you do get a little bit of that bubblegum that stays, and it does become quite floral. As I said, oddly, I'm kind of getting a rose from it, but it must be the hibiscus. But because of that cupcake, you do get increasingly a little bit of that kind of creamy frosting, creamy cakey sweetness. Not necessarily like you'd smell it and go, that's a cupcake, but you might think there's a little hint of like tonka and vanilla or something in the base. So Personally, I think this one's really fun. I think it's really cute, and I do like this perfume. So this I'm going to hold on to. I'm going to see how it goes. I haven't had this for very long, but I think it smells quite nice on my skin after I get past that kind of weird sour stage that lasts for a couple of minutes. So that's Candied Fantasy. So last on the list, we have this very strange kind of mystery perfume. So this is Pure Fantasy. It's called a Parfum Elixir, I think it says. Now, this, I think, was due to come out in February 2025. I think it was made in 2024 and it was advertised either like maybe late 2024 or early 2025. And I think it was officially advertised, but I don't know why this never seems to have actually been launched. I've been trying to find stuff on the internet about it, but there's not a huge amount of information. There's stuff on Reddit with people talking about it, people who saw, I think people saw it on the official Britney Instagram, and they were wondering whether this was like the last Elizabeth Arden perfume, because I think that Britney's perfumes have changed hands, and this might have been when she was going through all the legal wrangling with her clearly very unpleasant family. But this, I know it's really hard to see it in here, but it is still EA fragrances on this. But maybe this was put into production and then they ceased making them. Whether they already had Candied Fantasy out, I don't really know. Or whether they'd already made it. It'll be interesting to see what the next release is. But anyway, I just thought this one looked interesting. It sounded interesting. And to be honest, this was purely me being really nosy and wondering, what is this going to smell like and why didn't it come out? So when I saw this come up on Direct Cosmetics, they have it on like Perfume Click, eBay, they've got it in a few different places, and from some like grey market perfume shops that are totally reliable. They don't sell fakes or anything. So I was like, I'm just going to try this. It was about £17.99 for this. I think it's a 30ml. Oh, 50ml. So this one's a 50ml. It is a slightly different bottle. It's the same bottle, but like slightly different design. It has a kind of iridescent gleam on it. And then Pure Fantasy is actually printed on it. It doesn't have any of the gemstones, which I think some people like and some people really don't like. But personally, I don't really care. I just wanted to smell the perfume. So again, because this wasn't officially launched, it's not on Fragrantica, it's not on the perfume websites where you can like log your perfumes, which irritates me, but I'd really like to be able to put it in and talk about it. But I thought, next best thing, let's talk about this on YouTube. So the notes in Pure Fantasy Elixir are top notes of quince, nectarine and lychee, heart notes of jasmine, vanilla and cupcake, base notes tonka bean and sandalwood. It is such a shame that this wasn't officially rolled out and that it's not easy to get hold of. Certainly, I don't know, and it's relatively easy in the UK and affordably, but I'm not sure about how easy this would be to get in other countries. But people would have loved this perfume. I think it's such a tragedy that this didn't actually come out, because as someone who doesn't love the original Fantasy, I think this one is actually delicious. I think if you take away the sharpness of the fruit in the original Fantasy, if you take away that shampoo-y scent that you get, that kind of shampoo texture of that perfume, you amp up the cupcake and then you add in a creamy mixture of tonka and vanilla, that's what Pure Fantasy smells like. It's like a more gourmand version of Fantasy. It's probably the same level of sweetness, but it's creamier rather than sugary. And it's therefore, I think, much nicer. Like, I am a real sucker for the combination of tonka and vanilla, more so than when it's just vanilla. And this is super pretty. I actually genuinely like this perfume, and I was not sure at all how I would feel about this. But I think Pure Fantasy, or like Pure Fantasy Elixir, whatever it's actually supposed to be called, I think that this is a fantastic perfume. I think it's one of the best of the range. So yeah, if you can get hold of this, I think that this is definitely worth investing in. If you like kind of creamy tonka vanilla-y perfumes, I think you might really like this. If you like the original Fantasy, you're probably going to absolutely love this one. Yeah, I really recommend it. I think it's so nice, and I am surprised that this one never properly came out, because I think it would be an absolute bestseller. So yeah, I mean, I think that rounds up my Britney perfume video. This one's probably very long because I've got a lot of things to talk about in it. Let me know below if you've got any of these, what your favourites are. Please don't take it personally if I've really not liked your favourites. That often happens with me. My channel's called Skin Sense for Fusspots because I am very fussy about perfumes, but I'm not a snob, and some of my favourite perfumes are the cheapest in my collection. So it's not about this being celebrity brand, it's just about how I feel about each scent. But also let me know down below if you've got any of the ones that I've never been able to smell, and tell me what your favourites are. I think there's like the Sunset Fantasy, I think there's one called Rainbow Fantasy, there's a Glitter Fantasy, there's loads. And I also want to shout out, because I don't necessarily smell them in the same way, but I've really enjoyed watching the reviews from Meta Perfume on all the Britney Spears perfumes. She's really going in and doing quite long reviews of each one. And I've really had a lot of fun listening to those. So although I think we probably have a different list of what our favourites are and how we feel about them, and necessarily how we smell them, but I would really recommend going over to Meta Perfume to watch her reviews as well, because we all have different noses, so it might be helpful to get a couple of different people's opinions. But I've really enjoyed watching her takes on these. Thank you so much for watching this probably very long video. Please do consider subscribing, it really helps my channel. I mainly talk about affordable perfumes, and yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this. I think I am probably going to end up with a minimum of 5 Britney Spears perfumes in my collection, probably a few more. So yeah, this has been so fun. I feel like the newer Britney perfumes are much more in my kind of taste range than the older ones. So there you go. You know, I'm glad I came back to them, and I took a 2-year hiatus from trying them, but a few of these I think are real keepers. There you go. All right, thanks guys. Bye.